The video began like countless others flooding social media that autumn. A teenage girl's laughter, the distinct glow of smartphone screens, and something darker underneath. But this one would become different. This one would reach the chambers of Judge Frank Caprio and change multiple lives forever. Leah Crawford was 16 when she made the decision that would define her next year. Standing in Kennedy Plaza with her phone raised and her friends watching, she approached a man sitting quietly against a weathered brick wall. Harold Hawk Dawson, 69 years old, looked up briefly as she came near. What happened next lasted only seconds, but those seconds would ripple outward in ways none of them could have anticipated. She kicked him. Not violently enough to cause serious injury, but deliberately enough to make him flinch and fall backward against the wall. Her friends erupted in laughter. The camera continued recording. Leah smiled broadly as she turned back to face her audience, adding a caption that would eventually reach 17,000 people in the first hour alone. Homeless man challenge? Who's next? Harold Dawson struggled to stand, his left leg, damaged decades earlier by shrapnel in Vietnam, giving out beneath him. He slumped back down, his expression showing confusion and humiliation. The camera captured it all. Judge Frank Caprio had presided over Providence Municipal Court for 3 decades. He had witnessed human nature at its best and worst, had learned to recognize genuine remorse and calculated performance. But when he watched Leah's video for the first time in his chambers, something shifted in his expression that his clerks rarely saw. He watched it 3 times. Each viewing revealed new layers. The casualness of the cruelty, the performance aspect, the complete absence of recognition that the man on that wall was human. But Judge Caprio also saw something else, something connected to information he possessed that would become crucial to this case. He knew Governor Melissa Crawford. More precisely, he knew something about Governor Crawford that her daughter apparently did not. On the morning of November 24th, the courtroom filled early. Local news crews positioned cameras along the back wall. Reporters filled notebooks. Everyone understood the significance. The governor's daughter, a viral video, a homeless veteran, and Judge Caprio presiding. The clerk called the courtroom to order. Judge Caprio entered, his expression carefully neutral. He took his seat at the bench and surveyed the room with the measured gaze of someone who understood that justice required both compassion and accountability. Ms. Ramirez, the court clerk, stood to read the charges. Her voice carried the formal precision of someone who had performed this duty thousands of times, though even she seemed affected by the specifics of this case. Case number 2026 TR99214, City of Providence versus Leah Crawford. The charges are as follows: assault of a disabled veteran, disorderly conduct, harassment, filming harmful act for online distribution, and resisting officer instructions. Leah sat in the defendant's chair with an air of profound boredom. She examined her fingernails. When Ms. Ramirez read assault, she rolled her eyes visibly. She sighed when the charges continued, each gesture communicating her belief that this proceeding was beneath her attention. Judge Caprio's voice cut through her performance. Ms. Crawford, stand when charges are read. She complied, slowly, grudgingly, as if granting an enormous favor. Where is your parent or guardian? Judge Caprio asked, his tone even but firm. My mom's the governor, Leah replied flatly. She's busy running the state. She said she'd send someone. She said she'd send someone, Judge Caprio repeated, not that she would come herself. Yeah, a lawyer or whatever. Someone to handle this. The phrase hung in the air. Handle this. Make it disappear. The unspoken assumption was clear to everyone in the courtroom. Judge Caprio studied her carefully before speaking. Nothing gets handled in my courtroom, Miss Crawford. Not because of who your mother is. Not because you believe it should, Leah shrugged. We'll see. Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly. Do you understand the charges against you? I guess, Laya said. You guess? I mean, yeah, but they're ridiculous. I was just making a video for my followers. A video, Judge Caprio repeated. Can you elaborate? It's called content. Everyone does it. Everyone kicks homeless people for content? It wasn't like that, Laya said quickly. It was a dare. My friends challenged me. It's a thing, the kick challenge, you wouldn't understand. It's a Gen Z thing. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, absorbing this explanation. I see. And the man you kicked, do you know who he is? Laya shrugged. Some homeless guy. He was just sitting there. His name is Harold Dawson. He's a United States Marine Corps veteran. He served 2 tours in Vietnam. He was wounded in combat and awarded the Purple Heart. He lost partial function in his left leg from shrapnel. The courtroom fell silent. The weight of this information seemed to affect everyone except Laya, who simply blinked. I didn't know that, she said. Would it have mattered? Judge Caprio asked. Laya didn't answer immediately. Would you have kicked him anyway? Judge Caprio pressed. For the views. Laya looked away. I don't know. Judge Caprio picked up a tablet from his desk and tapped it several times. He turned the screen toward Laya. Is this you? The video played again. Laya approaching Harold, laughing, raising her leg. The impact. Harold flinching and falling. Laya's friends cheering. The camera zooming in on Harold's face, confused, hurt, diminished. Laya's face paled. That's taken out of context. What context makes this acceptable? Judge Caprio asked. She had no answer. You posted this video, Judge Caprio continued. You captioned it. You tagged your friends. You added laughing emojis. You received 17,000 views in the first hour. Can you explain your thinking? It was just for fun, Laya whispered. Fun, Judge Caprio repeated. He set the tablet down and looked at her directly. Miss Crawford, let me ask you something. Do you know what your mother has been doing every Tuesday evening for the last 2 years? The question appeared to come from nowhere. Laya frowned, suddenly defensive. She works. She has meetings. What kind of meetings? I don't know. Governor stuff. Budget, policy, whatever. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Governor stuff. And you've never asked what those Tuesday meetings involve? Why would I? She's the governor. She has a million things to do. Because, Judge Caprio said quietly, I want to know if you know your mother at all. Before Laya could respond, the side door opened. Harold Hawk Dawson entered the courtroom, walking carefully with a worn wooden cane. He wore clean, donated clothing, and his gray hair was neatly combed. His face showed the weathering of difficult years, but his eyes remained clear and dignified. He made his way to the front row and sat down slowly, his damaged leg causing visible discomfort. He placed his cane beside him and folded his hands in his lap. Laya saw him. The color drained from her face. She tried to hide her phone under the table. An instinctive, futile gesture. Judge Caprio waited until Harold was settled. Mr. Dawson, thank you for being here today. Yes, sir, Harold replied quietly. Would you like to say anything before we continue? Harold was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was soft but steady. I just want her to understand something. I'm not angry. I'm just tired of being invisible. The courtroom became so quiet that individual breaths could be heard. I served this country, Harold continued. I was proud to serve. I came home with injuries and nightmares. I tried to work, tried to keep my family together, but things fell apart. Lost my job, lost my home, lost my wife. His voice caught slightly. I ended up on the streets, and people look right through me like I'm not human anymore, like I don't matter. He looked directly at Laya, his expression sad rather than angry. When you kicked me, you weren't just hurting my leg. You were telling me I don't deserve basic respect, that I'm just content for your video." Laya's eyes filled with tears. "I just want you to see me," Harold said quietly. "That's all. Just see me." Judge Caprio allowed the moment to settle before turning to the police officer standing near the side door. "Officer Price, your report, please." Officer Daniel Price stepped forward. Early 40s, professional bearing, with the demeanor of someone who had witnessed too much cruelty but refused to become desensitized. On November 18th, at approximately 3:30 p.m., "I responded to a complaint at Kennedy Plaza," he began. "Multiple witnesses reported teenagers harassing a homeless veteran." Laya stared at the floor. "When I arrived, I found Mr. Dawson sitting against a wall, visibly shaken and injured. Several teenagers were nearby, laughing and filming. The defendant, Miss Crawford, was among them." He paused. "When I asked what happened, she said, and I quote, 'We were just making a video. It's not illegal to touch a homeless person.'" A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. "I explained that assault is illegal regardless of the victim's housing status." The defendant then said, "My mom's the governor. You can't arrest me." When I attempted to detain her for questioning, she resisted and tried to delete the video from her phone. Judge Caprio's expression darkened. "Did you recover the video?" "Yes, Your Honor. It had already been uploaded to social media. We obtained copies from multiple sources." Judge Caprio nodded his thanks to the officer. He then turned his full attention back to Leah. "Miss Crawford, you keep invoking your mother's name as if it were a shield, as if political power makes you untouchable." Laya crossed her arms defensively. "Because it does." "Does it?" "Yeah. My mom knows judges. She knows cops. She knows everyone. One phone call and this goes away." Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "One phone call, I see." He paused. "Miss Crawford, let me tell you what your mother has been doing every Tuesday evening for the last 2 years. Laya frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Every Tuesday, your mother drives to the Hope Harbor homeless shelter. She doesn't tell her staff. She doesn't bring security. She doesn't wear suits or name tags. She just shows up." Laya's face went pale. "She serves dinner. She talks to people. She listens to their stories. She helps them fill out housing applications. She sits with veterans who have nowhere else to go." He paused to let this sink in. "She also funds the shelter anonymously with her own money, not campaign funds, not state funds, her personal savings. $20,000 a year for the last 2 years." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Caprio raised his hand and silence fell immediately. "Your mother believes that every person deserves dignity, especially those who serve this country, especially those who fell through the cracks." Laya's tears spilled over. "I didn't know." "No," Judge Caprio said. "You didn't, because you never asked. You never noticed. You were too busy making content." The back door of the courtroom opened. Governor Melissa Crawford entered quietly, her face drawn with exhaustion and emotion. She didn't take a seat. She simply stood near the back, watching her daughter. Laya turned. "Mom?" Governor Crawford's expression combined heartbreak and determination. "I'm here, but I'm not here to protect you. I'm here to support the consequences you've earned." Judge Caprio gave them a moment before speaking to Governor Crawford directly. "Governor, would you like to say anything?" Melissa Crawford stepped forward slowly. She looked at her daughter, and her eyes filled with tears. "Laya, I have spent my entire career fighting for people like Mr. Dawson. I have written legislation to protect veterans. I have secured funding for homeless services. I have tried to build a state where everyone has dignity," her voice broke. "And my own daughter kicked a homeless veteran for views." "Mom, I'm sorry," Laya sobbed. Sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't undo what you did. Sorry doesn't erase the video that's been shared hundreds of thousands of times. Sorry doesn't heal the harm you caused. She took a shaky breath. I'm ashamed, Leia. Not because you embarrassed me politically. Because you showed me I failed as a mother. I gave you privilege, I gave you comfort. But I didn't teach you empathy. That's not true, Leia whispered. It is true. And now you have to learn it the hard way. She turned to Judge Caprio. Your Honor, I'm not here to ask for leniency. I'm here to support whatever sentence you believe is appropriate. My daughter needs to learn accountability, and she needs to learn it from you. Judge Caprio nodded respectfully. Thank you, Governor. Judge Caprio opened the file before him. His voice was calm, measured, deliberate. Leia Crawford, you are 16 years old. You filmed yourself assaulting a disabled veteran and posted it online for entertainment. That is not a mistake. That is a moral failure. Leia wiped her face, trying to maintain composure. You treated a human being as disposable. You exploited his vulnerability for social media attention. You laughed while he suffered. And you used your mother's position to try to escape consequences. He paused. But I'm going to give you a chance to become someone better. Leia looked up, simultaneously hopeful and terrified. Here is your sentence. You will complete 150 hours of community service with the Hope, Harbor Homeless Shelter, and Veterans Outreach programs. You will serve meals. You will clean. You will listen to people's stories. You will see them as human beings. Okay, I will, Leia nodded quickly. You will write a public apology, not a statement written by lawyers or PR professionals. Your own words. You will post it on every social media platform where you posted that video. Yes, Your Honor. You will pay $1,500 in restitution to Mr. Dawson for medical expenses and pain and suffering. Yes, sir. You will write a 10-page reflective essay on dignity, service, and privilege. You will read it aloud in this courtroom in 6 months. Leia swallowed hard. I understand. And finally, you will meet monthly with the Providence Homeless Support Project. You will attend their education sessions. You will learn about the systemic issues that create homelessness. You will understand that people like Mr. Dawson are not content. They are human beings who deserve your respect. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Miss Crawford, I'm not punishing you. I'm teaching you. Your mother tried to teach you through her example. You didn't see it. So now you'll learn through service. He looked at Harold. Mr. Dawson, do you have anything you'd like to say? Harold stood slowly. He looked at Leia, and his expression softened. I don't want you to hate yourself. I want you to do better. That's all. Just see people. Really see them. Leia nodded through tears. I will, sir. I promise. The first Tuesday evening at Hope Harbor, Leia arrived early. Her mother drove her, but didn't stay. This was something Leia needed to do alone. Inside, the shelter smelled of vegetable soup and fresh coffee. A woman with kind, tired eyes met her at the door. You must be Leia. I'm Susan. I run this place. Hi, Leia said quietly. Thank you for letting me volunteer. Susan smiled slightly. Your mother speaks highly of this work. Leia's eyes widened. She really comes here every Tuesday for 2 years. She's one of our most reliable volunteers. Leia felt something crack inside her chest. Shame, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. Susan led her to the kitchen, where a dozen volunteers were preparing dinner. In the corner, chopping vegetables slowly with his good hand, was Harold. Leia's stomach dropped. Mr. Dawson, Susan said gently, your new assistant is here. Harold looked up. His expression was guarded but not unkind. Hello, Leia said, her voice shaking. I'm here to help however you need me. Harold studied her for a long moment. Then he held out a cutting board. Start with the carrots, he said. And you can tell me why you kicked me. Leia took a shaky breath. Because I thought views were more important than people. I was wrong, Harold nodded. Yeah, you were, but you're here now. That's something. Over the following months, Leia learned what her mother had been trying to teach her all along. She learned names, stories, histories. She discovered that James was a former teacher who lost everything in a medical bankruptcy, that Rosa was a veteran nurse with PTSD, that Marcus had been an engineer before his factory closed. She learned that Harold had owned a small mechanic shop, that he'd been sober for 3 years, that he was saving money to get a small apartment. Why do you still volunteer here? Leia asked one evening, as they cleaned tables. You could go anywhere. Harold paused. Because these are my people. When I had nothing, they shared what little they had. I don't forget that. Leia was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry I treated you like you were nothing. I know, Harold said. You've shown me. Actions matter more than words. Her mother came that evening, too. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. Afterward, in the parking lot, Melissa put her arm around her daughter. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. I'm sorry it took this long, Leia replied. You're learning. That's what matters. May 24th arrived warm and bright. The courtroom was packed. Susan came. Harold came, walking confidently with a new cane. A dozen volunteers from the shelter filled the back rows, quiet and supportive. Judge Caprio entered and everyone stood. Please sit, he said. He looked at Leia. She looked different, grounded, present. She stood straight, made eye contact, didn't look away. Leia Crawford, you've completed your service hours. You've written your apology. You've paid restitution. You've attended your meetings. Now I'd like to hear your essay. Leia nodded. She pulled out 10 handwritten pages and walked to the podium. Her hands shook slightly as she began. 6 months ago, I kicked a homeless veteran for views. I thought people were content. I thought my privilege protected me from consequences. I thought dignity was something you earned, not something everyone deserved. She paused. I was wrong about everything. For the next 15 minutes, Leia read. She talked about Harold's service, about the shelter residents she'd met, about her mother's quiet example, about learning to see people instead of opportunities. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Then Harold started clapping. Slowly, the shelter volunteers joined. Then everyone else. Leia's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Judge Caprio smiled. Well done, Miss Crawford. This case is officially closed. Leia walked over to Harold. She didn't extend her hand. She just stood there, waiting. Harold looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled and opened his arms. Leia hugged him, crying. Thank you for giving me a chance, she said. You earned it, Harold said quietly. Keep going. Governor Crawford approached Judge Caprio and shook his hand firmly. Thank you, Your Honor, for teaching her what I couldn't. Judge Caprio nodded. She taught herself. She just needed the right environment. The governor smiled. We'll keep volunteering, both of us. Good, Judge Caprio said. They need you. Outside, the sun was warm on their faces. Leia and her mother walked together toward the parking lot. Harold walked beside them, no longer invisible. Mr. Dawson, Leia said, would you like a ride? Harold smiled. I'd appreciate that. They walked together. 3 people who'd learned to see each other. Not as governor, veteran, and teenager, but simply as people. In the courtroom behind them, Judge Frank Caprio watched them go. He thought about privilege and pain, about visibility and dignity, about the moments that break us and the service that remakes us. He thought about justice, real justice, the kind that doesn't just punish, the kind that transforms.